Nigeria's federal government has declared bandits as terrorists. This comes after the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, gazetted a court judgment that ordered the government to make the declaration. Justice Taiwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja on November 25, 2021, had granted an ex parte application by the federal government for Yan Bindiga, the Hausa word for gunmen, and Yan Tada, the Hausa word for terrorist, to be declared as terrorists. I'm now joined by Kabir Adamu, a security risk management and intelligence specialist, for more on this. Kabir, good to see you and thanks for your time. Some would say this declaration by the Nigerian government has been a long time coming, but on the other hand, it could also be argued that it shouldn't have taken this long to make the declaration. Let us in on your take.
Exactly. Good evening, Suleiman, and Happy New Year. Yes, there was, before the court verdict in November, there was ample opportunity for the Nigerian government to have moved and taken a stand on this issue. But, we could spend time to discuss that. What is important is that there was a court verdict in November, and that court verdict asked the federal government to declare at least 2 of these identified groups as terrorists. And today, the federal government has gazetted that court, pronouncement. And so officially, under the Terrorism Prevention Act, this aspects of, activities in the country that before now was called banditry, officially would now be considered as terrorism. I think that for me would be the most important. And I can, relate that to the National Counterterrorism Strategy, which has 5 major components. One of those components include the identification of terrorist groups, and then of course their proclamation. So it appears to me that the federal government is working within the precincts of its strategy, that the National Counterterrorism Strategy, having declared this group. Of course, the next thing to do would be to do these other 4 components of the National Counterterrorism Strategy, identify their membership, make public this membership, then request formally the security agencies within the department to go after this membership, arrest them, gather evidence, present them before the competent court of jurisdiction to either prosecute them, or in certain instances, if they resist arrest under the Terrorism Prevention Act, if security forces agencies have the right to, kill them if that is what is necessary to stop their activities. Third component is to identify their funding capabilities, block their funding capabilities, identify their assets, confiscate or block these assets where it's necessary, and then lastly, build the resilience of the local population to implement measures to prevent persons from joining them, either as members or as supporters or anything. So this is just the beginning, frankly. The other 4 components for me are even more important than the declaration, and that's what we wait to see.
Now, I think Nigerians, from the explanation, we can see why this is being agitated for. Now that the bandits have been so declared as terrorists, what do you expect to happen? How will it support the fight against terrorism vis-a-vis what you just highlighted earlier?
Well, if the 4 or the 5 components of the counterterrorism framework are implemented, starting from their identification down to blocking their funding, then it means we're more or less containing or encapsulating one key component of terrorism in the country. And so we're likely to see a reduction in terrorism, especially from this particular group, the so-called bandits. So it's a very key and important development if it is implemented fully.
Well, earlier before I joined you, I reported the rescue of nearly 100 victims of abduction in Zamfara, and in the same breath, the killing of alleged collaborators with bandits by vigilantes. So, on the one hand, security forces are rescuing kidnapped victims, while vigilantes are killing persons suspected to be collaborating with bandits. Who can we now call a terrorist? How do you bring this to a very defining, term?
Philemon, time will not allow me to go into the nitty-gritty of this issue and to answer your question, clearly, but I'll try my best to summarize what the situation is. One of the key drivers of this insecurity situation in the Northwest is these activities of vigilantes. There is no bandit group that has come out with a demand that has not included a demand for the disbandment of this vigilante group. The history of the whole security challenge has to do with the creation of these vigilante groups and the inability of, especially the police, to have trained properly these vigilante to make them understand that they may have the powers under our constitution to arrest, but they don't have the power to prosecute, and which is what happened in this instance. They saw suspects and then they killed them. I know it's driven by anger by the community about the activities, but we are not a lawless society where you arrest someone who is quote unquote a suspect. You cannot prosecute him. You take him to the right department, which is the judicial arm of government, and then that arm would now prosecute him. The second component of your question, there is a certain terrorist or bandit leader called Bello Turji. Last month in December, he issued a letter where he offered, as it were, to the government his willingness to negotiate and come to some sort of amicable resolution to all of the killings that he's doing. And so as part of that, he's been releasing some of the victims that he arrested, and this so-called rescue is associated with that. Now, let me not give him all of the credit. There has also been an increase in the security force operation in that region by Operation Hardering within that region. So that operation too has put pressure on the bandits that are operating in that region. And so most of them would abandon their camps, and then the security agencies would easily be able to recover or rescue this component. So all of this that I'm saying are happening within the dynamics of the conflict that are operating in the region. The vigilantes on the one hand, the bandits, and then the security forces. So when we ask the question, who is a terrorist, I think it's very important that we identify what aspects, what activities define terrorism within our Terrorism Prevention Act 2019.
Well, just last year, a southeastern governor, specifically Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, did say he was going to name sponsors of terror in his state. And, well, he just backtracked a few days ago saying it would jeopardize ongoing efforts to secure the fight. Was that a good call?
As far as I'm concerned, in the first place, except through the report of an investigation that he formally sanctioned, on the basis of a legal platform, maybe the State Security Council or some other judicial commission, and then the report now, indicated, for instance, through an investigative process that certain individuals have been found, guilty, or there is compelling evidence to show that those individuals are supporting either criminality or terrorism, then the governor, as an executive head, I do not think he has that capacity. Yes, he can generate that capacity from the functions of the various security agencies within his state. And like I've given instances, but in this instance, we're not aware that that is what happened. So my worry is that there is the politicization of some of these security issues. And I would beckon on, especially our governors, to take a step back and ask what will be the consequences of this politicization when they issue statements that have consequences, especially across the various, their states first, and then across the geopolitical zones. Then how would the consequence of that statement backfire or have a backlash that would affect national security? We're going into the 2023 elections. I worry that we are going to see a lot of such statements. And unless we take concrete action to, sensitize our political leaders on the implications of some of their statements, then I'm sorry to say we may come out of the election period perhaps a little bit behind than where we are at the moment in terms of national unity. And the contribution of, our national cohesion to our security.
Thank you very much, Kabir Adamu.
Thank you, Suleiman.